Okay, on to the back. So what we're going to do, the back is actually very easy. If you have a seam in your back, you can put that in now. Don't forget to stop wherever your vent is. You're not going to sew to there. You'll stop right at that dot where the vent starts, a ½ inch down from where the vent juts out. So what you need to do is to take your horsehair and, similar to the undercollar, you're going to overlap your seam so that they just sit on top of each other, and you'll just zigzag down there. Once you're done, you're going to trim back. I've done this side already. You're going to trim back your seam allowance. So anything that's left over there, I'm going to flip this around so I can show you. So now I'm just going to take my seam allowance and just trim it back. Just get rid of that extra. Okay, all the way. I'll trim that all the way down. Now, if you have, and I know some of you do, have a princess seam, what you want to do on the back of your jacket is this process, and I'll tell you why. So you're going to be, because the back is relatively flat, it's easy to maneuver the horsehair by overlapping the seams. So you can do that on each one of these seams. So unlike the front where we tucked it under the seam allowance, on the back you're going to overlap it the way I've done it here and just zigzag them together. Go carefully because you're going to be on a curve. I know down here where I have a little shaping in my waist, I had to slow it down so I could make sure that it's still matched up, as I don't want to distort the jacket. But that's what you'll do for the back. And the reason is that the back and the front are different is that in the front we want to preserve the fullness that goes over the bust. So by tucking it under, you're not really messing too much with that seam. Here you're going to have two seams that are relatively straight that are going to support each other. Whereas in the front, you want that flexibility for the jacket to go over the bust. So that's why in the front of the jacket, you took your horsehair and you tucked it under your seam allowance. Remember? So in the front, your princess seams should look like this, but in the back, they're going to look like this. So once I've got my back canvas all ready, I put it down, wrong sides together, to my fashion fabric, lining up my center back seam. Again, nice and perfectly, working on a really good, clean, flat surface. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my garment and flip it over. And I can see all my stretching. I had it was really off this time for me, which is okay, it happens. And then I'm going to trim away anything that is not lining up, because I want to make sure when I do my taping that I'm taping at the right side. So here I've got this big piece. Before I cut something that big, I'm going to double check it. I'm going to trim off my excess. And I'll keep going there. Once you've trimmed off all the excess, the next thing you're going to do is to go back in and mark where your seam allowance is around the armholes and around the neckline. Okay, and again, you're going to put in your ½ inch, and then you're going to make sure it's nice and flat, and I'm going to use a contrasting thread here to show you, but you're going to use thread that matches. And again, you're going to tack your canvas to your fashion fabric by using a giant pad stitch. So the end should be, you know, 2 or 3 inches. You can get really big on this, but all you're doing is attaching your fabric to your canvas. So make sure use your touch on the other side so you're not coming through. If these stitches show or give you a problem in the end, you can always clip them and take them out, but you want to run 2 rows down right from the center shoulder all the way down. Again, hold the canvas to the fashion fabric. Once that is done, the back's actually almost done. You'll be happy to know. The next thing you're going to do is to go back and do the same process that you did with the front, and you're going to tape the neckline using the same process as we did in the front. So all around the neckline. Again, don't forget to make sure that your tape is just a split hair beyond where you're going to stitch, because you want to stitch right next to the tape. So make sure that you get this is something to really take your time and be exact about. And then as well as the back neckline, you're going to go ahead and do the armholes. Okay, both the right and the left. And then the back of your jacket is ready to go. So this is what your jacket should look like when it's all completed. I've trimmed off my seam allowance for my neckline and my 2 armholes, and I've done my tape. Again, a reminder to wax your thread first and attach this side of the tape to the seam allowance itself, and attach the opposite side only to the canvas, so that when you're stitching, you're going to be stitching right along this line. Okay, that's pretty much it for the back. We'll be putting together the jacket, sewing the seams of the shoulders and the side body, and then we'll get into attaching our collars to our facing and to our jacket.